we have your weekend Apple news. Welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here, what goes on the weekends with this channel? What do? I actually have a beer, show you what I'm drinking. It's a Friday, right? Or a Saturday usually. And then we go in through about 20 or 25 different Apple-related stories. We have some fun with them, talk about all different things. I even show you some products from time to time. So sit back and relax. If you love tech, if you love Apple, let's get into the Apple news. All right, so what do I have today? I'm back to my old ways with the German beer here. I have a Tucker Fest beer. You can see it right here. I'll show you a close-up of the can. I actually found this when I was in the Christmas markets about 6 months ago in Germany. I went to the Christmas markets. I'll show you some pictures. And they were serving this beer. I was the only one drinking it because it was freezing, 25 degrees out. People were drinking, wine, the hot wine. Here I am drinking beer in 25-degree weather. This is it's a special lager, and it's basically a full-bodied golden lager. So super smooth. Anyways, you can get this at Binny's. It's hard to find. But anyways, like I always say, you guys might like cappuccinos or coffee instead of, beer. Whatever you want to drink. Let's sit back and have some fun. We're going to go through about 20 or 25 different Apple stories right now. Let's get into it. All right, so the first one is not actually a story, but more of a product showcase. At least I want to show you what's on sale right now. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video on this. This is the QuizLab 40 gigabit per second. It's a Thunderbolt enclosure, so you can get like reads and write speeds for external storage up to about 3,200 megabytes per second with this enclosure. So you can check out my old video. Definitely check that out. Anyways, there it is. So they have this on sale right now. And it comes with this. So I did a video on this as well. This is only a 10 gigabit per second enclosure. So you're going to get like 1,000 megabytes per second read and writes on this one. But this is a rugged enclosure. So it's made with this bumper. You can drive a car over this one. Any case, right now over here on Amazon, you can take a look at my screen. They have both of them on sale for less than $99.99, so $100 roughly. And it comes out to like usually a Thunderbolt enclosure is around $100 just by itself. So you're getting basically this for free if you buy it right now. So if you're thinking about some storage enclosures for your Mac, these both work great. You just got to put the right drives in and stuff. Definitely read their pages. They'll work perfectly. So $100 for that right now on sale, not a bad deal. This next one's actually really interesting because the M4 iPad Pro just came out. Here it is from 9to5Mac. It says 4 upcoming new iPads potentially revealed by device identifiers. So basically these device identifiers are saying what's coming down the pipeline with the iPads. If you scroll down to them down here, you can see here they are. These top two are it's basically Wi-Fi and cellular, so it's the same iPad here. But this is going to be the 11th gen, so we have the 10th gen right now. But the 11th gen is the cheapest iPad, and it says it's going to come with the A16 chip right here. Then it's going to say the iPad mini 7th gen is going to have the A17 chip. You can see it right here. And then it actually identifies, all the iPad Pros now coming out with the M5 chip. So I'm guessing that's like next year or a year and a half from now. But these other ones are supposedly coming this year. So the 11th gen is going to have the A16 chip, which is weird, they're saying in the article, because that won't be capable of doing Apple Intelligence, right? It needs actually a little bit faster chip to do that, and it's not rated for that chip. So they're thinking, is this right or is this not? With the Mini can do it because it's going to come with the A17 chip, but the 11th gen is going to come only with the A16 chip, which is 2 chips faster than what it has now in the 10th gen, but they still might limit it so it doesn't do Apple Intelligence, and they're trying to get people away from buying that cheap iPad because that's what everyone's buying. It makes up a huge percentage of their sales, so I think that's what they're trying to do here. Maybe they're kind of not letting you do that unless you buy at least the Mini, so we'll see how that hashes out, but it's kind of interesting to me. All right, story number 2 is actually interesting just because it's a new identifier for a new product coming out maybe later this year, 9to5Mac. HomePod with display, basically, its reference is Apple's home accessory. So here you can see a HomePod, and it's got a display on top of it. And this is what we think is coming in about 2 months based on the article when they actually launched the new iPhones coming out. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. But basically it says, Mark Gurman reported in February that Apple has been exploring different ideas for a new smart home device, which is kind of points at this device. It says one is a 3-in-1 device that combines Apple TV, HomePod, and a FaceTime camera. And then it's integrated with basically Apple Intelligence. And then down here it says currently the most interesting part of this report is the fact that the unreleased device is powered by the A18 chip, and that'll be basically capable of Apple, obviously Apple Intelligence as well. It's going to be capable of running that, and it's going to be pretty fast chip for what it is. So they think with that chip involved, the screen's going to be on this thing. It's going to be helping you with all your smart devices and everything like that, including you can ask it questions. So we think this is coming later this year. I thought it was kind of interesting. We'll see if it kind of comes. This article they're saying it's about like a 75% chance of this actually happening. These guys are not always right, so we'll see what happens, but pretty interesting, right? All right, the next one's actually another sale right now. Now, I showed this a little while ago, but it's still on sale right now, so you might want to pick this up if you're thinking about this. Here it is right here. This is the Apple 2003. It's the M3 Pro chip. So you get the M3 Pro chip. It's the 14-inch, and it's basically the base model, 18 gigs, 512 gigabyte SSD right here. But $16.99 right now, 15% off, usually $19.99. $300 off. Looks like it's, it doesn't say when the sale is going to end. It's been kind of hit or miss. I've seen this go up, come down, go up, come down. But still, $300 off the base. This is the Pro chip again, the M3 Pro chip. It's not like the 15, not the one that's lower down there, just not the standard M3, but it's the M3 Pro. $16.99. You get the additional, get the 18 gigs and you get the 512. So I would say this is probably the best deal right now on MacBooks if you're thinking about pulling the trigger. So definitely pick this up, but I wouldn't worry about the M4s coming out. This is they're going to be way more expensive anyway. So this is a pretty good deal. Cheers, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the weekend in the United States, the 4th of July, right? Anyways, the next article is interesting because Apple never stops, right? We know that all these new Snapdragon chips are coming out and things like that, but Apple has to stay on top of it or they're going to lose kind of the lead and everything. So here's Mac Rumors. It says Apple's M5 chip dual-use design will power future Macs and AI servers. So there's a new chip kind of process they're working on right now. It says Apple reportedly use a more advanced SoIC packaging technology for its M5 chip as part of a two-pronged strategy to meet its growing need for silicon that can power consumer Macs and enhance the performance of data centers and future AI tools in the cloud, all right? So it says developed by TSMC and unveiled in 2018, this technology allows for the stacking of chips in a three-dimensional structure, providing better electrical performance and thermal management compared to traditional two-dimensional chip designs. So they're going 3 dimensions on this, and long story short, it's just kind of telling you that they're kind of working the process of the chips right now, trying to stay ahead of everything, making them more powerful, more power efficient, and we'll see with the M5. Obviously, the M4 hasn't even come out yet, and I think that's going to be beating the Snapdragons pretty good there. With the M5s, though, now they have a lot more pressure coming down the pipeline. So, obviously they're going to be working a lot harder, which is good news for everybody. On the Windows side, on the Mac side, we shouldn't be fighting. It's actually good news for everybody, right? Because we're going to be getting stuff like this. So, anyways, I thought it was interesting. All right, so for the next article, I always talk about this AI stuff that's coming out. You have to kind of just take it. Don't jump right in, right? Wait to see what happens. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So over here, Apple Insider, ChatGPT for Mac app log queries in an unencrypted file before getting caught. So if you haven't been under a rock lately, maybe you have, obviously. I'm just kidding because I didn't even know about this a couple weeks ago. But ChatGPT came out with an app. This is not Apple Intelligence. It's an app that you can download for your Mac and allowed you to go out to ChatGPT. This is before the stuff that's coming later this year, right? It's just kind of another standalone app. And so what they did is Apple has strict guidelines on about protecting user data with sandboxing, but ChatGPT for Mac bypassed this by storing conversations in plain text until it was patched on June 28th. So basically they were storing your conversations in plain text from the article, and other apps and stuff could actually see that if they wanted to, or a hacker could get in there and pull all your query information out of there. It was in plain text. And then I guess people complained about it, and it says it was patched already on June 28th. So they came back and said that, on June 28th, make sure you go ahead and patch your application. We fixed the issue. But as you can see, these things, it slowly takes time. So don't jump in. Don't be the first person to try this stuff because we got to see how good it is on security, protecting your data, all that stuff. And this is one example, perfect example, where they dropped the ball and, things could have grabbed your data, saw all the searches you're making, could have went out somewhere. You don't want that to happen, right? All right, so if you're an Apple Arcade fan, there's 4 new games that came out this month. So here from 9 to 5 Mac, let's scroll down here. So here it is on 7/3/24. They came out. Outlanders 2 is a game I might actually like. So if you look over here, here it is right here. You can see it. It's basically like a civilization, or it's a game where you actually build cities. You can see what's going on here. So you get the gist of it. There's a ton of games out like this, but this is called Outlanders 2. It's made for Apple Arcade. So it's going to, maybe the graphics aren't as good and stuff like that, but it should be a fun game, right? That's not a bad game. Then there's a Zen Koi Pro. So if you're into like koi fishing, the fish obviously from Japan and stuff, you go down here. It lets you basically create your different fish, I guess, and then you basically put them into some kind of a pond. Let me just see. You can see here, and it swims around and it eats bugs and stuff. I don't know who loves these games, but I wouldn't play this that much. But I guess you can build your own fish and stuff like that, level up, different things like that. So that's another game that came out. Again, that's not really a flagship game. It's kind of more of a game you play every once in a long while. Then the next one's called Punch Kick Duck Plus. So look at this game. It's kind of actually funny. Let's see if we can get into this. Let's go down here. So if I go ahead and play this one, let me go ahead and play it. Here we go. So you can see this game. It's basically just like a fighting game. You're a duck and you got to punch, duck, and jump, I guess. That's obviously the name of the title. So there you go. That game actually came out right now. And then the fourth one that came out is Cityscapes. This is a sim builder for Vision Pro. So I'm not sure if this could only be played on Vision Pro, but this looks like obviously another game where you can build cities like SimCity and stuff like this. Looks actually really good. I mean, look at this. The graphics are really good and it looks pretty extensive. So Cityscapes sim builder. It's based by Apple Arcade right there. Anyways, if you guys are into it, there's 4 new games that came out this month, so check them out. So the iPhone 16 hasn't even come out yet, but they're already talking about the iPhone 17. Take a look at this article here. It's from Mac Rumors. It says iPhone 17 Slim, everything we know so far. So it says basically in 2025, Apple's expected to discontinue the iPhone Plus device in its iPhone 17 lineup to make way for the Slim phone. They're not saying it's going to be the iPhone Slim or called that, but they're saying it's going to be a much slimmer phone. And you can see pictures. They always want to go way thinner, right? Here's a picture of it right here. You can see how thin that is. I don't know how that's going to be in the hand. It's really, really thin. But it says the iPhone Slim rumor so far is going to have a thinner design, obviously. We know that. Smaller display, slightly smaller just because maybe everyone wants to go a little bit smaller. I mean, it says it's not going to be that small. It says it's going to go down to 6.55 from 6.6. So not a big difference there. It's going to say it's going to have, let me just hear, relocated cameras. I guess because of the thin design, it's got to relocate the cameras. Anti-reflective coating, which is nice. It's going to have ProMotion technology as well. Improved selfie camera. And then internal upgrades. It's going to basically have 8 gigs of RAM compared to 6 gigs. Although, who knows, I think that's being upgraded. And then Apple's A19 chip as well. But it's also going to have a higher price, it says. So anyways, if you're thinking about getting the 16 now, obviously the 17 might be that thin design. So if you really need that thin design, you may want to wait another year. Although you won't be able to do Apple Intelligence, but that's not coming out probably for like another 6 or 8 months anyway, all the features. So anyways, you pick what you want, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to know this is actually coming. This next one's actually super interesting to me because of a couple reasons. Take a look over here, 9 to 5 Mac. It says Phil Schiller to join OpenAI board in observer role following Apple's ChatGPT deal. So this guy here, Phil Schiller, he's joining basically the board of OpenAI. It says basically after the partnership, if you scroll on here, it says, as reported by Bloomberg, Apple is having an observer role on the OpenAI board, matches the role of Microsoft basically. Schiller will be able to observe and attend board meetings, but will not have any voting power. So he's basically going to be sitting there kind of understanding what's going on with OpenAI so he can actually sit at the table, but he's not going to have any voting rights, but at least he knows what's going on. But the thing that's interesting to me, at least, that's kind of interesting, right? But second of all, what's interesting to me is basically that he isn't there now, right? And the deal's already been made. So I guess it said he's going to start going to meetings fairly soon now, but they made this deal before he sat in those meetings. So long story short, he doesn't have probably a good understanding of how they operate yet, even though the deal has been signed. So we're going to see how this kind of affects it moving forward. All right, this next one over here, this is from Apple Insider as well. I had to get a sip of that. Right here, iPhone 16 Pro will have a brighter and longer lasting display. Apple Insider again. It says a new report claims that the iPhone 16 Pro and the Pro Max will be the first phones to use Samsung's M14 OLED display panel. So kind of a new display technology. And it says there is no specifics on the latest report about how much brighter displays will be. However, a separate leak in May of 2024 claimed that the iPhone 16 Pro would get a boost to 1,200 nits from the 1,000 nits on the iPhone 15 Pro. So long story short, simple article. If you're going to be waiting for this 16 coming out in a few months, it's going to probably be about 200 nits brighter as far as the screen if you get the Pro models. For all it's worth. I know people love that kind of, they keep talking about it on the iPads. To me, it doesn't really matter. I don't need it that bright because I'm not always outside, but I guess with the phone, it makes a lot more sense than maybe even an iPad. So it's probably a good change, right? Anyways, I thought it was interesting. All right, this next one's another sale going on Amazon, and I'll have links to all this in the video description. So here it is, the OWC 5-port Thunderbolt Hub, 60-watt charging, Thunderbolt 4, USB 3.2, compatible with Macs and PCs. It's even down further. So I always say this is one of the better deals on Thunderbolt 4 hubs if you just want something basic. Here it is, $117. These are usually like around $250. So that's not a bad price right now, 9% off right now. So what does this have? You can see in the front of it, it has a connection right there where you can connect to your Mac, and then it's got a USB 3.2, 10 gigabit per second on the front. But on the back of it, let me get to the back. Right there, you can see that it's got basically 3 more Thunderbolt 4 ports. So if you're looking just for extending your Thunderbolt 4 ports with some charging and then an additional USB-A 10 gigabit port as well, $117 you can't beat from OWC, and 4.3 right here out of 5, so good ratings on it as well. I've actually used this product and it has worked really good for me. So anyways, you guys do your own research, but I figured it's just a good sale going on. All right, the next one's from Apple Insider right here. It says Mac OS Sequoia adds headphone accommodations to AirPods. So basically, let's go down here. It says the accessibility setting in AirPods called Headphone Accommodations is now available in Mac OS Sequoia. So just so you know, the menu can be found in Settings, Accessibility, Audio, and then Headphone Accommodations right there. And what it basically does is Headphone Accommodations, let me just see here. It works with AirPods and basically modern Beats. Users can choose different tone balances, audio boost levels, and how transparency mode amplifies sound. So basically it gives you you can change the way that they actually sound in your ear better. So just thought it was kind of important to show people. So if you do have those kind of AirPods and stuff like that, definitely check it out. See if you can change the sound to more of your liking, add more bass, add more treble, things like that. Anyways, I thought it's kind of interesting, and it's coming out. So I know a lot of people that don't have Sequoia yet on their Macs because it hasn't officially come out yet. But for the people that have it on right now, and for a couple, maybe a week or two from now when it actually does, definitely try it out. All right, the iPhone 16 is coming out soon, so another story from them. And what are we finding out? Right here from 9 to 5 Mac, it says iPhone 16 Pro to feature 5 times optical zoom. Apple supplier teases. So, long story short, it says last year when the iPhone 15 lineup came out, the iPhone 15 Pro Max came out with an exclusive feature. It's basically the periscope lens that enabled 5 times optical zoom, 25 times digital zoom. So it says that the iPhone 16 Pro, not even the Pro Max, just the Pro version, this is the difference. So you don't have to actually get the Max this time, just the Pro is going to come with the same thing in iPhone 16. So just another feature coming out. But you may want to wait for that iPhone 17, which is going to be the slim version like I talked about earlier. So you got to make the decision. It's going to be a tough one. All right, the next one I always talk about security and how Macs are secure, but some of the apps you put on there may not be, all right? This is a crazy story. Apple Insider, it says Authy got hacked. 33 million user iPhone numbers were stolen. So first of all, Authy is an app that basically helps with two-factor authentication, and it's made to help protect you, basically. That's what the app's purpose is. And it says basically it had a hack that reportedly saw 33 million cell numbers being stolen. So if you're using it, just think about this for a second. But what's the big deal with cell numbers, right? So down here it says, let me just see here. So it says threat actors may try to use the phone number associated with the Authy accounts for phishing and smishing attacks. So we encourage all Authy users to stay diligent, whatever that means, right? And have heightened awareness. So what does that mean, right? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to be heightened awareness. What does that mean, right? So, and they didn't even come out and say how many people's information was stolen. It came out from the actual hackers. TechCrunch reports that the hackers claim to have stolen 33 million numbers. It doesn't come directly from Authy. So long story short, just be careful out there because this is another example. If you're using this app, definitely stay diligent, I guess. But what can you actually do? All right, so the next one's about the Vision Pro. And the Vision Pro, basically, this is from Apple Insider. They're not selling that well right now. And I talked about last week on how they may actually go with a thinner design, much cheaper, that connects into your iPhone. I think that would be a good idea. Get it around $1,500. But here's a new feature coming out for the people that actually bought this for $3,000 to $4,000. New AirPods with IR camera coming to enhance spatial audio in the Apple Vision Pro. You can see the AirPods here. So analyst Ming Choi Koi says that Apple is planning to release an AirPods with infrared camera modules that detect when a user turns his head, and then basically it automatically adjusts the sound to where it's coming from. So if you can imagine you have the goggles on, you put the AirPods in, and you move this way, and the sound's coming from over here, it might become more faint. But if you look at the sound, it's going to become more clear. So this is actually what's going on with this. But again, like I said, this is all great features. But how many people bought this thing? Very, very people have it. But I guess more corporation stuff or doctors are using it, so maybe it's going to help them a little bit more. We'll see what this is, but just some interesting news. Now, one of the reasons I choose Apple, obviously, is because of security, and this kind of backs me up on this, but nothing's perfect, right? So right here from 9 to 5 Mac, it says Apple Intelligence Privacy sets new standard, but it's not perfect. And this is from Interrupt. It's kind of like a security professional. So down here it says Apple Intelligence Privacy is stronger than that of any other AI company, but even its security protections aren't perfect once ChatGPT gets involved. So we all know about this. It says as much processing as possible on device with no data sent to servers. That's what they want to do, is have as much as they can on device. But then if external processing power is needed, Apple's own servers basically are the next resort. And then as a third resort, it says if they can help, users are asked for permission to use ChatGPT. That's where it gets a little bit hairy, but still, Apple still protects you more than anyone else when using ChatGPT when we start using their systems later in the year here. But if you scroll down here, it says, but for some data, you're stuck with OpenAI's rules like we just talked about. Apple strips identifying information when sending to OpenAI. That's good, but there's a lot of identifying information in many of the queries. Essentially, the more personal the AI query is to you, the greater the risk that it can be identified. For example, if you were to ask ChatGPT to help you plan your itinerary for a city break, the fact that you are in a particular city at a particular weekend and have listed specific interests could be enough to identify you. So we're getting a little, nitpicky here, but I mean, I guess if someone really wanted to, or the government or someone wanted to, then you can break it down by, it's got to send something over to them outside the Apple network. But still, good news if you're kind of an Apple user, because this is saying it's the best in class right now for security, even though Apple's maybe a little bit going slower than most of the other companies. But I think that's actually a good thing. All right, the next one is actually good news as well if you're a gamer. So from 9 to 5 Mac, it says Apple's game porting toolkit now helps developers port macOS games to iOS. All right, so we'll just scroll down here. So it says Apple's game porting toolkit 2 was announced when actually they had the last WWDC. And it makes, it's going to bring more powerful games to the Macs. And actually, it's going to help developers actually want to do it. And this is the reason why. It says right here, it says, but surely the biggest news here is Apple's game porting toolkit now works with iOS 18.2. So one of, in WWDC sessions, the company talked about how developers can now use game porting toolkit to port Windows games to macOS and then port to basically macOS version of iPhone and the iPad. So what it's saying is this thing is powerful enough where they can move them from Windows to Mac, obviously, to like basically, a MacBook or something. But from there, this toolkit makes it super easy to port now to the iPhone and to the iPad. So it gives developers, a lot quicker way of doing that. And so now there's more incentive for them to do it because they can make revenue on all three of those platforms instead of just like a MacBook or Mac OS, and it makes it a lot easier for them. So we're going to see more titles come from this anyways. All right, this next story makes me have to take a drink because I don't like this when countries start doing this, and we know this is going south, in the next couple of years. It says right here, Apple Insider, Russia forces Apple to remove VPN apps from the App Store. Not good news. It says Apple has caved to pressure from Russia authorities to remove a number of the best-selling VPN apps from the App Store in the country. Apple's App Store has been notifying VPN developers that their apps are being removed per demand from basically Russia. This is the state media watchdog that previously forced both Apple and Google to remove political apps that basically back the leader's opposition. So long story short, when companies start getting rid of VPNs, they're thinking, hey, they don't want people like looking at other things. They want to control the internet. Obviously, Russia's doing this right now. They're in a war, and there's, you could argue if they're communist. I think they definitely are. Long story short, when it starts going this direction, if it starts happening here, we got to be very, very aware of it. But it's happening there, and this is kind of the start of the downfall of a country when they start doing that because information then is protected. So a lot of this happens in China and stuff like that. So long story short, not a good article. The next one's a quick story from Apple Insider. It says, a MacBook Pro design refresh is probably years away. I think we thought this, right? So just showing a picture here, it says rumor score. It says it's basically not likely, probably until 2026 or maybe 2027. So we have a couple years to wait before there's any type of redesign happening. So if you're thinking about buying a MacBook, obviously right now the question is, should you pick up that one I just showed you, the M3, or should you wait for the M4s? But the M4s aren't going to have a new design, so don't worry about that. And probably the M5s won't either. So we're probably going to be looking at the M6s that actually redesign, the MacBooks and, just the look and feel of them. So if you're looking at like a design change and you need to pick one up, don't wait on it. If you're looking for the chip change, obviously that's going to be happening maybe later this year, so you got to keep an eye on that. But besides the look and feel of it, that's not going to change for a while. All right, the next one's interesting to me as well. This is the new iPhone 16. 9 to 5 Mac says the entire iPhone 16 lineup again said to feature A18 chips. Why is this interesting? So if you go down here, we can see, just take a look at this here. So it says, as explained by Mac Rumors, the code refers to the following iPhone identifiers. And you can see that they all start with like 17, 17.1, 17.2, 17.3. So that means that they all have basically the same chip, which they think is right over here. The A18 chip. Because the reason I think this is because if you look at old kind of lineups down here where they came out with the phones, you can see like iPhone 15, it had a 15.4, 15.5, but then they had a 16.1, 16.2. You can see that 15 and 16 are different here, and that means that they're different chips. Here, they're all the same basic chips. Now, when we say the same chips, we mean We don't mean like a pro version of it or versus a standard version of the chip. We just mean the A18 chip. Obviously, one's going to probably be faster, clock differently, have a different setup, but they're all going to have probably the same number chip, all right? So interesting if you're waiting again on the phone. They shouldn't be like, I think they're doing this because of the AI. They need the speed on everything, but they're still going to make sure that the Pro models are definitely faster, obviously, in the Max version and stuff like that, but still something just to note. All right, this next one I don't think is great news because I thought Apple was going to basically wall off everybody eventually, but we'll see if that happens still. But still, 9to5Mac says Apple rumored to announce integration with Google's Gemini chatbot this fall. So obviously we know that right here. Apple last month announced the partnership with OpenAI with ChatGPT 4, and I thought maybe they were going to kind of use that temporarily, then wall everybody off eventually. But here it's saying Apple's rumored to start using Google Gemini in the fall as well. They're working out the deal with it right now. They said down here that the Apple's head of software, in an interview said that Apple plans to add support for more chatbots in the future. But again, I don't know if this is temporary or not because I think it's a bad idea. I think that Apple, as they develop their own, should really wall off they can't probably do it because of the government will come after them, but make it more difficult because people then give them a choice of using them, or you can obviously use what's inside as well. But if Apple gets better at it and you don't have to go outside, it's going to be way more secure for most users, right? Let's wrap this up with one more sale here. So over here on my screen here on Amazon right here, this is going to be the 16-inch M3 Pro. So if you want a 16-inch, this is the 16.2-inch, it's 18 gigs of RAM, 512 gigabyte SSD. So the base model down to $21.99 right now, 12% off. So you get another $300 off this. Like I mentioned earlier, the 14-inch is $300 off as well. This is as well. So if you're looking at the 16-inch right now, M4s are coming down the pipeline, obviously, but the M3s are capable of doing Apple Intelligence as well. So if you want to save a couple bucks here, $300 is, it's substantial money, right? So on Amazon right now, and I'll have a link to all this in the description, so if you want to check it out. Anyways, we're going to wrap this up. This thing got really, really long. And again, I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. It was the 4th this last couple days ago here. And we have a great weekend. We have some great weather finally. It's not 1,000,000 degrees out here in Chicago. And I know you probably watch this a couple weeks from now and you're wondering what I'm talking about. Anyway, subscribe if you can. We do this once a week. On the weekends, we go through all the different Apple news stories. And we'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.